My wife said the baby is not about you. It is Miguel's. And I am helping a friend when I asked about the fertility letter confirming 7 weeks, though she publicly declared she would never have children for any man. I am 34, and my wife Julia is 32. We have been married for 7 years. She is the CEO of a successful marketing firm, and I am an architect. We met through work and built what I thought was a strong partnership, both personally and professionally. From early in our relationship, Julia was clear she did not want children. She said pregnancy would interfere with her career and she was not willing to sacrifice her body or time for motherhood. I was disappointed, but I accepted this as her choice. Over the years, I learned to let go of the idea of having children and focused on our marriage and careers. Last week, I returned from a 2-month project overseas. I had been working on a major commercial development in Singapore, and the project required my physical presence for design approvals and client meetings. Julia and I stayed in touch through video calls, but the time difference made regular communication difficult. The day I returned home, I was exhausted from the flight. I came back to our house around 3 p.m., and Julia was still at work. I was sorting through the mail that had accumulated when I found a medical envelope addressed to her. It had been opened and resealed carelessly. Normally, I would not look at her mail, but the return address was from a fertility clinic. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the document inside. It was a pregnancy confirmation report dated 3 weeks ago. The report showed she was approximately 4 weeks pregnant at the time of the test, meaning she was now about 7 weeks along. I sat on our couch staring at this paper, trying to make sense of it. I had been gone for 2 months. The math was impossible. This child was not mine. I called Julia immediately. She answered, sounding irritated that I was interrupting her workday. I said, "We need to talk tonight." "It is important," she said. "Can it wait?" "I have a presentation tomorrow," I said. "No, it cannot wait. Be home by 7 p.m. When she arrived home that evening, she looked annoyed. She walked in and said, "What is so urgent that you could not discuss it over the phone?" I held up the pregnancy report. "Would you like to explain this?" Her face went completely white. For a moment she said nothing. Then she recovered, and her expression hardened. She said, "You went through my private mail." I said, "Answer the question." "Julia, you are pregnant." "I have been overseas for 2 months. Whose child is this?" She sat down across from me and crossed her arms. She said, "The baby is not about you. It is Miguel's, and I am helping a friend. But before you overreact, you need to understand the situation. Miguel is her childhood best friend. They grew up together and have remained close throughout our marriage. He is gay, and I never felt threatened by their friendship. He has been to our home countless times for dinners and holidays." I said, "Understand what situation, exactly?" "You are carrying another man's child," she said. "Miguel has been under immense pressure from his family to have children. His parents are traditional and do not accept his sexuality. He asked me to help him through artificial insemination so he could have a biological child and ease the family pressure. I agreed, because he is like a brother to me." I could not believe what I was hearing. I said, "You told me you would never have children. You said no man was worth the sacrifice of pregnancy. But you are pregnant with Miguel's child," she said. "This is different. I am doing this to help him who is suffering. It is not about romantic love or traditional family. It is about compassion." I said, "Did you discuss this with me before you did it?" She looked away. "I knew you would not understand. I knew you would make it about yourself." I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. The anger was obvious, but the relief came from finally having a clear reason to end what had become a hollow marriage. I had spent years suppressing my desire for children to accommodate her wishes. I had convinced myself our careers and partnership were enough, but this betrayal made everything clear. I said very calmly, "I want a divorce." She laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "You are overreacting. This has nothing to do with our marriage. The baby will be Miguel's responsibility. Nothing changes between us," I said. "Everything has changed. You made a decision that affects both of us without consulting me. You are carrying another man's child while married to me. You violated our marriage in the most fundamental way possible." She stood up and said, "Fernando, you are being dramatic and selfish. This is about helping someone I love. If you cannot understand that, then maybe we do not belong together, I said. Finally, we agree on something. I will have my lawyer contact you. She stared at me like she could not believe I was serious. Then her expression changed to cold contempt. She said, fine. But remember that I am the one with the successful company. I am the one who bought this house before we married. You will leave with nothing. I said, I will leave with my dignity, which is more than you will have. She grabbed her purse and left. I heard her car drive away. I sat alone in our house that suddenly felt like it belonged to a stranger. The next morning, I contacted a divorce attorney and began documenting everything. I made copies of the pregnancy report. I started looking for a new place to live. I felt strangely calm about all of it, like a weight I had been carrying for years was finally lifted. That was 4 days ago. Yesterday, something happened that changed everything. I went to a company dinner for Julia's firm. It was a networking event I had committed to months ago. I considered not going, but I had business contacts there and did not want to appear unprofessional. Julia was giving a speech about work-life balance. Someone from the audience asked her about family planning and career. Her response made me go cold. She smiled and said, I have always been clear about my priorities. I will never have children because no man is worth the pain of carrying a child for 10 months. My career and independence matter more than outdated expectations of motherhood. The room applauded. I sat there frozen. Several people glanced at me with uncomfortable expressions, clearly aware she was married to me. She was publicly declaring she would never have children while secretly already pregnant. I left immediately. When I got home, I found Miguel sitting in my living room. Julia must have given him a key. He stood up when he saw me and said, Fernando, we need to talk about this like adults. I said, get out of my house, he said. Julia told me you are upset, but you need to understand this is not about you. This baby is mine and Julia's gift to me. You are being incredibly selfish, I said. This is my home. Leave now or I will call the police. He looked at me with pity like I was a child having a tantrum. He said, Julia was right about you. You cannot handle when things do not go your way. I walked to the phone and he finally left. I changed the locks that night. I do not know what happens next. I have a lawyer. I have started looking for apartments, but I feel like I am watching my life fall apart, and I am strangely okay with it. Maybe that means I never really had what I thought I had. Am I crazy for divorcing over this? Some part of me wonders if I am overreacting, like she said. Update: the 1st of July. AITA and Miguel have been escalating their attempts to make me the villain. Things at her company have become complicated. It has been 2 weeks since my original post. Thank you to everyone who commented and assured me I was not overreacting. Your perspective helped me stay firm in my decision. The day after I posted, Julia showed up at the apartment I had just rented. I have no idea how she found out where I was staying. She knocked on the door at 9 p.m. When I opened it, she was crying. Actual tears streaming down her face. She said, Fernando, please, we can work through this. I made a mistake not discussing it with you first, but we can fix this. I said, there is nothing to fix. The marriage is over, she said. Think about what you are throwing away. 7 years together. Everything we built. Our life. I said, you threw it away when you decided to have another man's child without telling me. I am just accepting reality. Her tears stopped instantly. Her face hardened and she said, you are going to regret this. I have lawyers better than yours. I have resources you cannot match. You will walk away with nothing. I closed the door without responding. I heard her standing outside for a few minutes before she finally left. The next day, I got a call from my boss. He sounded uncomfortable. He said there had been a complaint filed against me by Julia's company claiming I had shared confidential design plans with their competitors. It was completely fabricated. I had never even seen their marketing plans, but the accusation alone was damaging. My boss said, I do not believe this for a second, but we have to investigate any formal complaint. You are on administrative leave until we sort this out. I knew immediately this was Julia trying to destroy my career. I called my lawyer and we filed a defamation counterclaim. We also subpoenaed her emails and company records related to the false complaint. What we discovered was worse than I imagined. Julia had not told her board of directors about the pregnancy. She had been hiding it with loose clothing and working from home more frequently. But more importantly, we found emails between her and Miguel discussing how to force me out of the house and pressure me to drop the divorce. One email from Miguel said, "If he has no job and no home, he will have to come back to you on your terms. Then you can dictate how the divorce goes if he still wants one." Julia's response was, "I am working on it. Once he is desperate enough, he will see reason." My lawyer said this was evidence of malicious intent and would help our case significantly. But reading those emails made me physically ill. The woman I had spent 7 years with was actively working to destroy my life. Then 3 days ago, the situation exploded publicly. Julia's board of directors found out about the pregnancy. Apparently, one of the board members saw her at the fertility clinic. She was forced to disclose the situation to them. The board was not pleased. Julia had been publicly positioning herself as a champion of women in business, who chose career over family. Her speeches and interviews about work-life balance and female leadership were central to the company's brand. The revelation that she was pregnant contradicted everything she had been saying publicly. More problematic was Miguel's involvement. Miguel had been doing consulting work for Julia's company. The board questioned whether the pregnancy represented a conflict of interest or inappropriate mixing of personal and professional relationships. They also questioned her judgment in making such a significant personal decision that could affect the company without informing them. Julia was not fired, but she was put on notice. The board issued a statement saying they were reviewing the situation and expected full transparency going forward. Several major clients paused their contracts pending the outcome of the review. I learned all of this from a former colleague who still works at Julia's firm. He told me the office is in chaos. Julia is blaming me for everything, claiming I leaked the pregnancy information to damage her reputation. She is telling people I am vindictive and trying to ruin her career out of jealousy. Miguel has been making the rounds too. He posted on social media a long message about homophobia and how society refuses to accept that gay men can have families. He did not mention me by name, but it was clearly directed at me. The post implied that I was discriminating against him because of his sexuality, and that is why I was divorcing Julia. I showed the post to my lawyer. He said it was borderline defamatory, but probably not worth pursuing legally. Instead, he suggested I focus on the divorce proceedings and let their public relations disaster run its course. My administrative leave ended after my company's investigation found no evidence supporting Julia's claims. They officially cleared me, and I returned to work. But the damage to my reputation lingered. Some colleagues treated me differently, unsure what to believe. Yesterday, I had my first mediation session for the divorce. Julia showed up with 2 lawyers. My single lawyer looked overwhelmed, but he held his own. Julia demanded I drop all financial claims on the house and waive any right to her retirement accounts. In exchange, she offered me $10,000. My lawyer laughed. He said, "My client contributed to the mortgage for 7 years and paid for major renovations. He is entitled to a fair division of marital assets." "Your offer is insulting," Julia's lawyer said. "Our client provided the down payment and holds the title. Any contributions your client made were essentially rent." We went back and forth for 2 hours. Nothing was resolved. The mediator finally suggested we take a break and reconvene in 2 weeks after both sides had more time to prepare. As we were leaving, Julia pulled me aside. She said quietly, "You know this is killing me, right? Every day of this fight is destroying what we had." I said, "What we had ended when you betrayed me. This is just paperwork now." She said, "I did not betray you. I helped a friend." "Why can you not see that?" I said. "Because you valued your friend's needs over our marriage. You made a choice. Live with it." She looked like she was going to cry again, but I walked away before she could start. I am exhausted. This process is draining financially and emotionally. Some days I question if it is worth the fight, but then I remember reading those emails where she plotted to destroy my career, and I remember why I need to see this through. Update 2. The legal battle has taken unexpected turns. Julia's professional reputation has suffered significantly. I am finding my way forward. It has been 6 weeks since my last update. The The divorce is still not finalized, but significant progress has been made. More importantly, I am starting to feel like myself again. The mediation sessions continued weekly. Julia's lawyers tried every tactic to minimize my financial settlement. They argued I was not entitled to anything from the house, because it was her premarital property. They claimed my salary had been sufficient to cover my personal expenses, so any money I paid toward the mortgage was voluntary. My lawyer fought back with evidence. We had 7 years of bank statements showing regular mortgage payments from my account. We had receipts for renovations I had paid for, including a complete kitchen remodel and new HVAC system. We had text messages from Julia asking me to cover various house expenses when she was cash poor during business downturns. The judge in our case was not sympathetic to Julia's position. During one hearing he said, "Mrs. Rodriguez, you cannot claim the benefits of marriage when convenient, and then deny your spouse's contributions when it becomes expensive. This is not how marital partnership works." We eventually reached a settlement. I received 30% of the home's equity, which amounted to about $180,000. It was less than I felt I deserved, but my lawyer said it was a fair outcome given the circumstances. I also kept my retirement accounts, and we divided other joint assets equally. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. I felt nothing when I signed the papers. No sadness, no relief, just numbness. But the story does not end there. Julia's professional situation has become worse than I could have imagined. The board review that was triggered by the pregnancy revelation uncovered other issues. Apparently, Julia had been using company resources to support Miguel's consulting business in ways that violated company policy. She had been giving him contracts without competitive bidding and paying him rates significantly above market value. The board saw this as a conflict of interest, especially combined with the pregnancy situation. They felt she had been using her position to personally benefit someone she was intimately connected to, even if that connection was not romantic. 2 weeks ago, Julia was asked to resign as CEO. She refused, so they fired her. The severance package was minimal because they terminated her for cause. She went from running a successful company to being unemployed in a matter of weeks. I learned this from news articles, not from her directly. The business press covered it as a cautionary tale about mixing personal and professional relationships. Some articles mentioned the pregnancy and her public statements about never having children. The hypocrisy angle made it a bigger story than it otherwise would have been. I felt no satisfaction reading these articles. I felt sad for the person she used to be before ambition and entitlement consumed her. But I did not feel guilty. She made her choices. Miguel has disappeared from social media. His accounts are all deleted or private. I heard through mutual acquaintances that his family did find out about the baby and they were not as supportive as he had hoped. Apparently they were upset he had involved a married woman and caused a divorce. They felt it brought shame to the family. I do not know if Julia and Miguel are still planning to raise the child together or what their arrangement is. Honestly, I do not want to know. That chapter of my life is closed. As for me, I have been rebuilding. I found an excellent apartment in a neighborhood I love. I have been reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I started going to therapy to process everything that happened. My therapist helped me understand that I had been suppressing my own needs for years. I had convinced myself that not having children was fine when it actually mattered deeply to me. I had accepted Julia's career ambitions taking priority over everything, including our relationship. I had made myself small to accommodate her. Now I am learning to prioritize myself. I am learning that my needs and desires are valid. I am learning that compromise in a relationship should be mutual, not one-sided. I went on my first date last week. Nothing serious, just coffee with someone I met through a friend. It was awkward and I spent half the time talking about my divorce, which was probably not ideal, but it felt good to be out there trying. Work has been going well. My reputation recovered once the truth about Julia's false complaint came out. I got assigned to a major project designing a new cultural center. It is the kind of work I love, and it has been consuming my time in the best way possible. Some people have asked if I have any regrets. The truth is, I regret not leaving sooner. I regret wasting years in a marriage where I was not truly valued, but I do not regret standing up for myself when I finally did. That choice saved me. Final update 1 year later. I have built a life I am proud of and gained perspective on everything that happened. It has been a full year since I discovered Julia's pregnancy and filed for divorce. I did not plan to post again, but several people reached out asking for a final update, so I wanted to provide closure. Julia had the baby 6 months ago. I only know this because I ran into a mutual friend who told me it was a boy. From what I understand, Julia is raising him as a single mother. Miguel is involved, but they are not living together. Apparently, the co-parenting arrangement has been difficult. They are both struggling with the reality of raising a child, which is not as simple as they imagined. Julia has not returned to the corporate world. She started a small consulting business working from home. From what I hear, she is barely making enough to cover her expenses. The house she fought so hard to keep is up for sale. She cannot afford the mortgage without her CEO salary. I feel no satisfaction knowing this. I do not celebrate her struggles. I just feel a distant sadness for someone who had everything and destroyed it through arrogance and poor choices. As for me, my life has transformed in ways I could not have imagined. The first few months after the divorce were difficult. There were nights I questioned whether I had made the right choice, and moments I felt the weight of starting over at 34. But slowly things began to shift. I continued therapy, and it became the foundation of my healing. My therapist helped me understand that I had been operating from a place of scarcity in my marriage. I was so afraid of losing Julia that I accepted treatment I should never have tolerated. I had tied my self-worth to the marriage, and when Julia dismissed my feelings, I internalized the message that I was not important. I became smaller and quieter, trying to avoid conflict. Therapy helped me reclaim my voice and sense of self. I learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. I started rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I realized I had let other relationships fade because Julia found my friends boring or wanted my time focused on her career events. Now I have regular dinners with old college friends. I joined a recreational soccer league, something I had loved but given up years ago. I started taking weekend trips to sketch buildings just for the joy of it. I discovered parts of myself I had forgotten existed. I remembered that I used to be funny and that I had opinions that mattered. I remembered what it felt like to take up space without apologizing for it. Professionally, I have thrived. The Cultural Center project was completed and received recognition from the state AITA chapter. It has led to other high-profile commissions, including a library renovation and museum expansion. My career is better now than it ever was during my marriage because I am no longer carrying the emotional weight of a dysfunctional relationship. Looking back, I can see clearly now what I could not see then. My marriage to Julia was built on an imbalanced foundation from the beginning. She was always the star, and I was the supporting character. Her career mattered more. Her friendships mattered more. Her choices mattered more. I accepted this dynamic because I loved her and because I thought that was what being a good partner meant. But a good partner does not require you to disappear. A good partner does not make unilateral decisions that affect both of your lives. The pregnancy was not really the issue. It was the final evidence of a pattern that had been there all along. Julia believed she was entitled to do whatever she wanted regardless of how it affected me. She believed I would always be there no matter what she did because I had trained her to believe that through years of accepting unacceptable behavior. When I finally saw that pattern clearly, it was not even a difficult decision to leave. It was the easiest decision I ever made. I wish I could say I have forgiven her. The truth is, I do not think about her enough to forgive or not forgive. She is just someone I used to know who taught me valuable lessons about what I will and will not accept in my life. Some people have asked if I am dating or looking for someone new. The honest answer is, I am not looking. I am enjoying my own company for the first time in years. I am learning who I am outside of a relationship and discovering what I actually want rather than what I think I should want. Maybe someday I will be ready to share my life with someone again. But right now I am focused on building a life I do not need to escape from. I am focused on knowing my worth so deeply that I will never again make myself small for someone else's comfort. What came after my marriage was hard. There were lonely nights and legal battles and days I questioned everything. But what came after was also freedom and growth and the discovery that I could be happy on my own. What came after was learning that my worth is not determined by whether someone chooses to value me. I am happy now. Genuinely happy. I wake up without dread. I make plans without considering how they will affect someone else's ego. I exist fully, instead of making myself small. I have learned that happiness is not something someone else gives you. It is something you build for yourself through 1,000 small choices to honor your own needs and boundaries. That is worth more than any marriage that required me to disappear. This will be my final update. I am closing this chapter completely and moving forward with gratitude for the lessons learned and excitement for the independence I have claimed. Thank you to everyone who offered support and perspective along the way. You helped me see that choosing myself was not selfish. It was necessary.